So now what? You've probably asked yourself that question 100 times because for decades you've been doing what you have to. And now you're wondering, have I actually done enough to do what I want to do? Would you like some help? That's why we're here, to take you from I have to wow, I really get to. I'm Brad Johansen with Omega Wealth Private Capital, and this is Wise Money. So glad you're with us on Wise Money. Brad Johansen with the President and CEO of Omega Wealth Private Capital. Joe Wilson III. Nice to be back with you, my friend.
Dapper as usual there, Bradley. I'm digging the outfit.
You look spectacular, my friend.
Oh, purple swag. I'm a big fan of purple.
I'm with you on that. We're going to talk about risk and where we're going because it's kind of pervasive for everybody. If you look at some of the surveys that have been done, there are probably a third of the older Americans that now don't believe that they are going to be able to live long enough to have enough money. They're going to outlive their money. 80% of those same people believe that the next generation is going to have a more difficult time retiring than they did. And the people who are retiring now are believing that their retirement is more difficult than their parents or their grandparents. And the risks continue to mount. If we talk about retirement risks right now, the idea right now is that people are using the market and then hoping that the market works and that their Social Security at the end, because if we're going to throw out another number, 1 out of every 4 American households right now are dependent upon Social Security to take them through retirement. We got a long list of risks, and it begins with the unknown of how long am I going to live? So how do I have to map that out in my longevity as to whether my money lasts until my last breath?
Think about what you just said. Why do folks feel that way? You know, maybe you're watching this going, oh my goodness, I feel the same way. And if you do, clearly you're not alone, as Brad just said. But I think why have folks felt that way? Well, think about what we've gone through just in the last 20 years. I mean, how many used to be called black swan events, once in a lifetime events. You go back and look what happened in the great financial crisis. You go back and look at what happened around 2000. And God forbid, 2001, what a tragic year that was. And look what happened in the markets. These are these once in a lifetime events. You go into 2008, 2009. Look at the market volatility through there. Look at what happened just a few years ago, 2022. We had a great 21. Markets pulled back, but not just that. Interest rates went through the roof in folks' bonds portfolio. They're seeing all this volatility, and they're going, how are we going to manage this going forward? And it's why there are so many concerns, because when all of your money is being managed the same way, you are subject to the winds of the market. We love the market. I'm an old Wall Street guy. I am a huge fan and fanatic of market. Why?
Market wins.
Math. Time in the market absolutely wins. The issue with so many folks is, if Brad said earlier, if everything, what are we trying to work for? Retirement. I've got a buddy in this industry down in Dallas. You know what he calls that? Front porch sitting money, right? At what level do you have enough money to say, I'm going to go front porch sit? The concern when folks come to us and say, can I retire? What are they really asking? They're asking, do I have enough income when I start to turn it on out of this retirement portfolio that'll last me to and through my last breath? I would position to you that if you're feeling that way, it's probably because you're managing all your money the same way. It's why we say we are unapologetically different by design. We want to segment that money out. Let's sit down and really identify, what do you need to cover the necessities and lifestyle? And how do we earmark some of that nest egg you've been saving to do one job, provide that income? Now it allows the rest of the money to do what you really have been doing your entire career. Keep it in, invest it effectively, and let it grow. When you segment that, the market volatility times when things are down seem a lot calmer. Why? You have income.
Okay, we talk about risks, and what the Fed's been trying to do for quite some time is
slow the economy,
bring down inflation.
Yeah. Yes.
And you may be using a number that is antiquated on how that's going to affect your retirement in the future.
You just had someone in last week. Tell them about it. What number were they looking at?
Well, we're looking at 2%.
And that's a recent number, and that's the challenge. If you go back in the last few years until just recently, 2% would have probably gotten you what you needed. But truly, we like to use a good number. If you're going to be retired 30, 40 years, we look at a 50-year average. The 50-year average, according to JP Morgan, is 3.8%. So if you realize the inflation and the cost of eating away at your income, it's like a financial termite. It's eating away at your income because it's costing you more and more. Last 4 years alone, it's 24% on average higher, more expensive to live than it is today.
Compound.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And what you're doing is dealing with a number that isn't realistic. So if it's not being figured into what your plan is, then you're going, why am I running out of money? Why isn't this math working? So if we start with inflation and then we go to taxes at this point, because we talk about the sunsetting of one of the best times in history.
Third best marginal bracket, in history.
I mean, come on. And nobody feels like their taxes are good at this point. And yet, what if they get worse when you're timing out your retirement?
There are two hidden risks that every one of you that are watching right now, you have to stop. Please listen to us right now. Write this down and understand. Hidden inflation, inflation in the true cost of your portfolio for the next 20 and 30 years. You might be able to sustain not planning for a true inflation number for 2, 3, 5 years. It's 10 to 15 years when that catches up with you. Think about it. If you're retired, maybe you just recently retired the last few years, and your retirement income has been level the last 4 years where we've seen a 24% increase, really what we're showing you is at your current income level, you're running out of that income annual budget by October. How are you going to live the last 3 months of the year? You're probably going to have to take more money out, and that's where it catches up with you in the end. But as you just said, the taxes, for many folks, their retirement income isn't truly diversified into different tax buckets. It's all managed in what was the greatest trick ever played by the government that said, 401k, we're going to give you a little break on your seed, and you pay us 30 years down the road on the harvest. All of these 401ks and 403bs and government plans have all grown, and when you take money out, you owe a tax on that. And if we see the tax market changing, and I believe we will see it, right now as it's structured, the end of 2035, we are slated to go back to what it was. That will be a tax increase for many of you watching right now. That is also eating away and eroding at your wealth. Remember, you want to be and stay retirement ready. The last thing you want to do is adopt a plan with bad numbers and not plan for taxes and inflation, and then realize you made a mistake 15, 20 years down the road. That's why I want to open these phone lines. Listen, folks, 844-657-1072, 844-657-1072. Maybe take out your phone, take a picture of that QR code. It'll take you to a page where you can put in some information, and you can schedule your very own complimentary with one of our amazing team member fiduciaries, maybe even 𝗫𝗍. Brad Johansson might be there in person, and help you understand, here are some hidden risks that you really haven't looked at. And if you haven't, you should.
I'll be there. And we're waiting to see you in the office, because a lot of people say, well, I have somebody who's been working on this for me. How's that going for you? Maybe it's time for a second opinion. Come into the office and let us produce a retirement readiness review complimentary to see if you are in a spot that you can be and stay retirement ready. Wise Money continues after this.
Louis, I want to talk to you a little bit about inherited IRAs. I believe you have a personal story to share?
Yes. My mom had a heart attack at 59.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And this was back in 2015. And so my sister and I both inherited an IRA from her. And at the time, we are able to stretch out the required distributions that we have to take each year for the rest of our lives.
Okay.
One of the biggest changes that's happened in the last 5 or 6 years was with the Secure Act. And when the Secure Act passed, it changed an inherited IRA when going to the next generation from a stretch IRA, being able to take the distributions for the rest of their lives, to a 10-year rule.
Wow.
They have to withdraw all the money by the end of the 10th year
Wow.
after somebody passes. And what that's leading to is just a huge, huge tax time bomb.
Yes.
And the government has their hands in this pie. Is there a strategy? What can I do? Are big questions we get. What can I do to shift this money to where that future growth is no longer taxed? And when it goes to my kids, it's no longer taxed. And we have so many tools in our tool belt to help people navigate that situation.
Louis, I can't think of a better time for people to call in and take advantage of that, because obviously everyone deserves to have their own tax map drawn out for them so they know exactly what the implications of taxes will be, especially with inherited IRAs, and it goes all hand in hand with proper legacy planning.
Cynthia is so right. Thanks for being with us on Wise Money. Brad Johansen with Joe Wilson III, Omega Wealth Private Capital. We're looking forward to seeing you in the office, 844-657-1072. But I also want to put up a code for our wisetaxbuild.com. If we're talking about taxes and we're talking about the
Well, how do you
business
not when
right
it comes to retirement planning?
now, we have to continue to talk about this, because a lot of times you're dealing with advisors who aren't allowed to be talking about the tax situation. And we're not talking about tax prep. We're talking about tax planning as you move into a different strategy of life. Tell me about wisetaxbuild.com.
I want you to think about this right now. And just think, when last time you went to the grocery store, imagine having your investment statement. You kind of know what that looks like. Imagine going to, maybe it's Kroger's, and you're going to pay for that grocery bill, and you're saying, here's my statement. No one's going to take that. Why? You have to convert that into cash. You can only spend after-tax dollars. And if you've been saving all your money in what we like to call the 400s, I have a great friend out in Washington, D.C. that coined that, and I loved it. The 400s, a 401k, a 403b, a 457. It's the chapters of the tax code that talks about tax-deferred accounts. If all your money is there, it's not all your money. So what kind of debt do you maybe have sitting in there that you haven't even thought about? wisetaxbuild.com. You can go to that right now. Take out your phone. Take a picture of the QR code while you're watching the show. Put in some just basic information that's going to give you a general idea of the tax time bomb you're sitting on right now. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. You've been working with another advisor, and we have amazing accumulation advisors in Cincinnati. But if you haven't heard this, I promise you, we might not be the ones that you come to. We might not be the right fit for you. You might not be the right fit for us. But I promise you, once you see this number and realize no one's talked to you about it, you're going to make a change. So be ready for what you're getting ready to see, because many of you are probably underestimating the actual tax debt you're sitting on. And as Louis described, when you pass, that tax burden just doesn't stop with you and your spouse. It will go on to the next generation. Under current law, under current legislation, that beneficiary, a lot of times children, will have 10 years to take that out. Imagine you've got parents that are in their 90s, late 80s, 90s. Their children might be in their 40s, 50s, late 30s. They're high income earning years. And now they're having to take that tax burden on as well. It is a hidden tax time bomb that many aren't even understanding.
Well, when you say somebody hasn't talked to me about that, this is RMDs that we're talking about, required minimum distributions that have to be taken. And people, I've never heard of this before. We have people coming into the office and say, when we watched your show, this is the first time we'd heard of this. When we came to your workshop, when we listened to you on the radio, this is the...
Here's why. Most advisors are saying, hey, just put it away and defer it. You deal with that later. Well, what is later? Well, later is right now, 73. You have to start taking money out. And if we see the tax code change, which we are, if they don't do anything on the Hill, and they're brilliant at doing nothing up there, 2025, December 31st, the law is going to revert back. It'll be a higher tax bill in brackets. You got to plan for this. Otherwise, you are really just letting the financial termites of inflation and taxes eat away at your
I met with somebody in the living room just a few weeks ago who came in on this very topic. Said, I heard you talk about RMDs, and I called my guy. And my guy said, you're only 58 right now. You don't need to worry about RMDs.
Yeah, so let's just kick that tax bill down the road for 20 plus years.
Kick the can.
Yeah, it's a horrible strategy, because it's not what you have, it's what you get to keep. And for many of you that are watching, not only do you want to keep it, you probably want to pass it on. It's what we call legacy planning, one of our main key pillars to talk about to the next generation the most tax efficient way. You have to address it, because just because you're not looking at it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's a real threat to your long-term retirement.
We harp on this because of so many people who come in and say, I didn't realize that I had a tax problem. Maybe When would you like to know? 844-657-1072. Let's put together a retirement readiness review that will include tax planning on this. You got a lot of risks out there. Let's mitigate the risks. Wise Money continues after this. So what do you need most in retirement? Income. And what are you losing when you stop working? We want to create an income engine that lasts, that takes you into and through your retirement. And maybe you've been working with a broker who is saying, well, let's just stay in the market and risk it. How much are you willing to risk with an income that needs to take you into and through your retirement? Time in the market is your friend, but an income engine that takes you through your retirement until your last breath is what we're looking for. Let's put an income engine together that makes it work for you. Maybe to 10, 20, 30 years in retirement. Call us. Come in. Let's meet. Let's create an income engine that lasts.
This is Wise Money in 60. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. This is Joe Wilson. Joe, Roth conversion, Roth contribution, go.
Often confused. Roth contributions meaning you have to make under a certain level, and it goes up every year and allows you to contribute money to an IRA, a Roth IRA, and that money will grow tax deferred. It is a huge piece of the accumulation phase of growing tax-free future money. Roth conversion, people get confused with it. You can convert at any age and at any amount. Something you've yet to pay taxes on, you convert that to a Roth IRA. Now you have to pay tax on it that year, but that money can then be disinherited from the IRS ever having their hands on it, and it can grow tax-free.
Joe, thank you so much. This is Wise Money in 60. I'm Cynthia DeFazio with Joe Wilson.
Cynthia, thanks so much. 844-657-1072 to come in and get your retirement readiness review. We are talking about the risks that you're facing in retirement. A lot of them you don't see. Some of them are hidden risks. We kind of exposed those in the retirement readiness review that people had no idea that they were going into. Just so many of these things are people who are quote unquote oblivious because they've never been told, I don't understand. And many of these people, if we talk about some of these studies, there's probably a third of Americans who believe that their employer didn't do enough for them to get ready for retirement. And obviously things changed with the Revenue Act of '78. Everything has changed and it's going to change again. So we have to deal with the rules that we have right now. But it's not okay to say, I didn't know. That's why we're asking people to come in, because this uncovers a lot of the questions that people have that they didn't know they had because they weren't dealing with a plan because the person that they were working with before hadn't told them. All of these risks compound, just like we're talking about inflation.
Well, you just have to be aware of them, right? You have to be aware of them because what you want to make sure you have is you want to have income while you're still breathing on this earth. And no one wants to get to that position when they're in their late 80s and Lord, even maybe 90s and you're going, I'm out of money. It's too late to go back to work at that point. What do you do? If you're ignoring inflation, if you're ignoring taxes, if you haven't looked at the true studies of longevity lasting longer, what about healthcare risk? What, God forbid, something happens to you or one of your spouses that could eat away all of these years of you working? There are tools and strategies to help mitigate the tax debt going forward, to help mitigate the longevity risk and maybe having to have something where there's a cognitive decline or something where you need in-home health care. My goodness, let's use those tools that are available to us to make that better. Here's an example of where, folks, who are we? What do we do? This is a great example. Imagine if you're going to hang a picture in your house and you and Colleen say, I'm going to go down to Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, wherever you want to go. And you walk in there and you go to aisle 5 and there's someone saying, you go, I need a hammer. And that person just walks you down and goes, right there, that's the hammer. That's the one you need. Doesn't ask any questions, puts a hammer in your hand. It's a big old 15-pound hammer. It's heavy. Is that going to hang a picture? Maybe. Could it knock down a wall? Possibly. What do you need? You need a little hammer, right? What are we going to do? First thing I'm going to say is, What are you wanting to do? How big is the picture? What are the walls like? Is it drywall? We're going to gather information and then make sure that the proper tools are in place. As simple as that is, it's what we do. We look at where you're having deficiencies in your income. You have to understand where your necessities are in life. Just sitting down on a piece of paper and go, here's some basic things I have to have so I can be and stay retirement ready. Unless you're like my mom who just wants to sit and watch John Wayne's every day, you're probably going to want to do some things. Maybe it's boating, maybe it's golfing. Let's put those things in there because no one retired to just sit. Once we identify that, we can start putting an income plan that's going to adjust for inflation, allow longevity to happen, maybe even have some healthcare strategies that, God forbid, if you needed to have access to that, you could, and then allows the rest of your money to be invested time in the market because that's undefeated. And we do it cost effectively and efficiently, and we're in the right asset classes. That is how we sit down and help folks be and stay retirement ready. But if you don't have that, you are just hoping and gambling on the first few years of retirement being great, and off you go. It's a big risk.
What do I always say about storytelling? I always say that best story wins. And when you come into the office, we will sit down with you in our living room and we'll talk about what your story looks like. How can we create a story that really creates a picture that you've been dreaming of for a long time? So what do you have right now? Where do you want to be? What does it look like? Have you thought about what you want in the next 10, 15, 20 years? Have you thought about what you want for people after that? We will sit and try and create a story that maps out for you just the way you'd always hoped, but weren't sure you could ever do it. That's why we create a retirement readiness review. Come into the office, 844-657-1072. Your best story is just ahead. Let's help write it for you. Wise Money continues after this.
There are so many variables when it comes to when you should take Social Security. Here's the thing you need to understand. It's all about you. It's not what your buddies or your friends did at work. It's not what Aunt Susie and Uncle Bill did. Their situation's different. Do you have enough money to last you to and through retirement? Have you planned for inflation and the impacts of it? How can Social Security help maybe bridge a gap that you really haven't thought about? If you take Social Security early, you know it's cut down, it's great, it's money in hand, but will that give you enough money when you look at longevity if you live to the ages of 90 and 95? What happens if you defer that maybe to the age of full retirement age? How will that impact your income, or does it impact it at all? What if you defer all the way to the age of 70 to turn that on? What benefits do you get, and how does it affect your personalized plan? See, Social Security is an amazing benefit that many current retirees are getting, and you need a clear understanding of how it fits with you and your other retirement assets so you can have enough money to stay retired. You don't want to miss this by making a poor decision. Set up a time to come into the office and connect with one of our amazing fiduciary team members that can help put a plan together utilizing your Social Security and how it works with your current retirement savings.
Joe's just sitting in the break going, front porch sitting money. That's what you're looking for in retirement, and maybe something well beyond that.
What a great image, though, right?
It is great.
Did you ever go to Cracker Barrel, like when you were traveling? Like when we would go to Texas, and we'd stop Cracker Barrel every time. And I loved it because you'd been in that car and you're exhausted, and you just go.
Did you sit in that rocking chair?
Oh man, I owned those rocking chairs. I was that fat, chubby kid, just came out of there with all my pancakes, and just sat down there and rocked for a while.
As we try and move into this, what do you want to emphasize to people?
I don't know if there's ever been a better time, at least in my career, for modern retirees to be able to retire. You might be surprised and say, well, here's some of the concerns, but if I've addressed the concerns, then I see markets are still at ridiculous highs. Companies are still making amazing money. You also look at, my goodness, we're in a great window of taxes where we can make some tax planning changes that disinherits the IRS going forward. And the Federal Reserve has raised the interest rates to a level that so many amazing opportunities are available for the modern retiree. What if you could retire now? What if instead of retiring 3 years from now, it's, hey, you can retire next year if we do the proper planning. Maybe you could retire today. I'll never forget, about 1.5 years ago, a gentleman came in, prolific saver, had worked ridiculously hard, made great money. And he came in and he said, I'm done. I just want to be done, but I don't think I can. And we sat down and go, well, here's some risk. We've got some of this, and we've got some of this, and we got to look at inflation. We got to look at taxes. We started to do some planning. And when he got back into our offices about 2 weeks later, it was so cool. He came in and I'm like, go quit. He's like, what? Retire. You're ready. You're retirement ready. Not just now, but you can stay retirement ready because of what strategies we just put together. Go retire. Hold on a second. He grabs his laptop, because he worked remote. He opens it up, turns around and goes, "This is his resignation." He'd had it sitting, dropped it in there, and resigned. What a cool feeling to see someone to go from the stress of working to front porch sitting. It's never been a better time than right now in my almost 20 years of being in this industry to retire. You potentially could, but to do it, you got to look for the landmines. You got to make sure that you've hedged your income. You got to make sure that you understand inflation and the impact it's having on that income. What about taxes? How do you mitigate this absolute tax bomb that's coming right down for you and your hard-earned retirement money? How do you handle longevity risk? How do you handle healthcare risk? But I promise you, there are tools right now that you can gather and put in your retirement tool chest, because you can, with proper planning, be in a position not just to retire today, but to be retired forever. 844-657-1072. So thank you much for watching. Our team's standing by. Pick up the phone. Take out your phone. Take a QR code. Take a picture of that. Thanks for watching Wise Money. We'll see you soon.
From tax time bombs to Social Security insecurities, strategic investments that help clean up your junk drawer and keep your income engine running smoothly at Omega Wealth Private Capital. We're fiduciary, independent, holistic wealth advisors, and we're here to turn your have-tos into get-tos. So, would you like your retirement dreams to move from good to great? Give us a call. It's what we do, because we really want to. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope to see you in the office. Until then, I'm Brad Johansson. We'll see you next time on Wise Money.